Let us invite the officials and also the deputations into the room, please. Today, the agenda item is ways to improve situation refugees, torture claimants, and asylum seekers in Hong Kong. We have Mr. Billy Wu, Principal Assistant Secretary of Security, Mrs. Anna Mack, Deputy Director of Social Welfare, and Mr. Feng Man Chung, Assistant Director of Social Welfare. Please introduce your paper. Madam Chairman, I just briefly introduce the paper. In fact, we've already listed the latest development and also our policy consideration. We are glad to meet with members and also the various concerned groups. Are we inviting the deputations to come in? Yes, indeed. We are happy to listen to your questions. Having heard the views, I will respond to the views, and the SWD colleagues also respond. In fact, today we have two different topics and two permutations. Now we have social welfare and the Security Bureau here, and then the next item is a joint meeting with the Home Affairs panel for discussing the street sleepers. Sorry, speakers are not coming through.
Thank you. 我哋fresh 局可以講呢啲嘅，即係提我
If I may say a few words first, please put on your earpiece so that you can hear more clearly. And Channel 2 is the English channel, Channel 0 is the floor channel, and Channel 1 is the Cantonese channel. You may seek the help of our staff members if you have not tuned in the right channel. Channel 2 is English. Channel 2 is English. So, are you all right? Are you all ready? Okay. Then feel free to raise your hand if you have any problem with finding the right channel. Let me remind you that the deputations, any one of the from the deputations, is not protected by the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance. Do your written submissions. All right. I invite the deputations to speak. Each deputation will be given 3 minutes. The first one, the International Social Service Hong Kong branch. My apologies. The first two groups have not yet arrived, so if I may call upon Mr. Kwok Wing Kin of the Labour Party to speak first. Thank you, Madam Chairman. With regard to the situation of the torture claimants, asylum seekers, we have the following view. There are 4,700 refugees. They are stranded in Hong Kong, but they are not given any humane treatment in Hong Kong. According to the CNN, the description is shameful, and also the refugees are like being kept in prison. Hong Kong is part of the international community, is an affluent society. We have the duty and the ability to provide the basic protection to the refugees, and we should also proceed with speedy screening of these refugees so that either they can be sent to the recipient countries or they can be repatriated. Now, the waiting time for confirmation of status is more than 3 years, and then they also have to apply to the recipient countries, and they have to wait for a few more years. And if they want to appeal against screening, they can also make torture claims, and that will take another 3 years. And so the claimants are just waiting and waiting. They wait for at least 6 years. They cannot work in Hong Kong. They cannot study in Hong Kong, even if they are not even allowed to work for the volunteer agencies. They can only rely on the ISS to apply for support for their basic needs. Every 10 months, they are every 10 weeks, every 10 days rather, they are given food, and the rent assistance is no more than $1,200, and there is no deposit, and really no money for paying deposit, and therefore landowners are unlikely to let out their units to these people. Let's take the refugees in pink chairs as an example. They are living in sheds which in the past were occupied by pigs, and the facilities were are very basic and if not poor. And when they are ill, they still have to seek help from the ISS and seek for transportation before they can go to visit the doctor. The government is now given assistance to the ISS for $200 million, and the effectiveness is much questioned. And in fact, some reported that they live at a certain address, but in fact such addresses or such places do not exist, and they are just living in sheds which were occupied by pigs. On the whole, Hong Kong should provide humane assistance to the asylum seekers and torture claimants, and the government should also review the arrangements and the allowance, and other NGOs should be subsidized to organize activities and provide service to the asylum seekers. Thank you. Next is the International Social Service Hong Kong branch, please.
International Social Service Hong Kong branch has been serving the local community and migrants and refugees in Hong Kong since 55 years ago. And we have such an extensive background in dealing with this welfare assistance. Since 2006, ISS Hong Kong has been designated by the government through a tender process to provide this assistance project. Let me just highlight the guidelines by which we operate as a contracted agency of the government. 1, assistance is humanitarian and it's a tide-over grant. This is a government statement and aimed at preventing the service clients from destitution. It is not equivalent to welfare assistance. All service clients of ISS are referred by Social Welfare Department to us. We are not accepting any walk-in clients because they have to be initially assessed by Social Welfare Department. And they have to be looked at in terms of sense of urgency and the kind of assistance that they would require. The referrals by which Social Welfare Department IFSCs are acted upon by ISS is again dependent on sense of urgency. The casework approach that's being used is on the premise that one social worker or caseworker is appointed for every client. The current ratio is one social worker has 130 clients, which is almost double the amount of the ratio with the local integrated family service centers. The assistance in kind does not come as a package. There is an eligibility criteria for every assistance. So if somebody comes and even if the package consists of accommodation, food, clothing, toiletries, transportation, it doesn't come automatic. What has to happen is there's a system for an interview process with every client, and every client is assessed on an eligibility criteria with requirements defined by Social Welfare Department on when each client can be accepted or not and when discretionary decisions are made. This is very clearly laid in the ISS and SWD contract. A contract agreement between ISS and the client is simply stating that the client is found to be eligible for that specific assistance in the agreement for a period of 1 month. This monthly agreement is reviewed when the clients show up for a renewal of the agreement. So it's always on a monthly basis and not a long-term basis at all. This is why it's considered as a tide-over grant. There is no distinction as to where you live in Hong Kong. You can be in Hong Kong Island, Kowloon, or New Territories. The same types of assistance can be offered. The differences in the levels of assistance and the types of assistance depends on the result of actually the interview process. I think the details of the assistance are listed. What ISS has to say is simply that all of the manner, modalities by which this assistance is delivered is part of an agreement in a tender contract between Social Welfare Department and ISS Hong Kong. ISS cannot act on its own or create policies on its own or even do a budget on its own. Everything is granted and decided upon by the Social Welfare Department and the government. Now, we are pleased that when we came into this project in 2006, the main accomplishment is that the refugees, asylum seekers, and torture claimants are no longer living in detention centers and refugee camps, which is a primary thing that ISS wants to consider. Community living is something that we want to actually make sure continues to happen. Now, whether the assistance is not enough or enough, the ISS just wants to say that we are open for any suggestions and open for whatever changes would be discussed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we would like to invite the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Refugee Advice Center, Ms. Miller, to speak.
Thank you. My name's Alita Miller. I'm the Executive Director of the Hong Kong Refugee Advice Centre, or HKRAC. HKRAC is a non-governmental organisation which provides free legal assistance to asylum seekers in Hong Kong. In our 6 years of operation, we've assisted more than 1,500 people. For far too long, the Hong Kong government has treated protection claimants as temporary recipients of humanitarian assistance, a measure intended to prevent destitution. However, Hong Kong has international legal obligations to all people, regardless of their immigration status, to respect, protect and fulfil their socio-economic rights, including the right to an adequate standard of living. This obligation goes beyond the prevention of destitution. The reality is that right now, many protection claimants are suffering destitution in Hong Kong while waiting for their claims to be determined. Right now, Hong Kong is not fulfilling its international legal obligations. The current policy is bad for protection claimants and bad for Hong Kong. With no right to work, protection claimants are unable to provide for themselves and their families, to use their time productively or to contribute to our society. Protection claimants must be able to live with security and with dignity. They must either be granted the right to work to support themselves or given adequate assistance to realise an adequate standard of living. Right now, they have neither. Civil society organisations have been filling the gap and struggling to protect claimants from abject poverty, but we cannot continue to do so indefinitely. The Hong Kong government must step up and meet its responsibilities to claimants. The current assistance package must be re-evaluated. Policy reform must move from providing assistance and preventing destitution towards respecting rights, ensuring security and dignity, and promoting self-reliance. We urge the government to establish fair, transparent and accountable assistance criteria. We petition the government to conduct a comprehensive review of current assistance, including participation of protection claimants themselves and civil society organisations. Hong Kong is a wealthy city with an international reputation for human rights and rule of law, but currently Hong Kong is wasting resources through an inefficient and ineffective system and losing face. Individuals' basic rights are being denied and people are suffering. Ensuring protection claimants' rights will fulfil Hong Kong's human rights obligations, resurrect Hong Kong's reputation as a world city, and avoid Hong Kong being shamed on the international stage. Let's act now to remedy an unfair and inefficient system. We encourage the government to create a mechanism to collaborate with civil society and to continue this dialogue. By working together, we can move towards a sustainable solution firmly grounded in human rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now we would like to invite Mr. Tariq to speak. Mr. Tariq, please.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, officers. I appreciate some policies from the ISS department, and what I was heard earlier, like we are not in detention centers anymore. But the problem is when we were out and we went to out to find rooms for ourselves, we were not given rooms, and whenever we went to any agency to find room, they were asking us the deposit. Do you have the deposit? And well, of course not. Then they were not willing to help us. Recently, I was kicked out from my landlord last month, 30th of June, and well, I had no place to live, so that night I slept in a stadium. And then very next day, some of my friends, they called me to live with them for a short while. And I was agreed. I found a room like there were 4 people already living. It's very small, and I could not even, if I'm lying down, I cannot turn on my other side. It was that small. So I started looking for places. Whenever I went to the agency, they were asking me for the same thing. Do you have the deposit? And I said, I don't have. And then they were asking me, what job do you have? And I said, I'm ISS client. And when I said ISS, they said, we don't accept ISS. And well, some of the agencies, they really don't want to hear the name of ISS. And at one of the agencies, I asked them, why? What is the reason? And they said, we are not getting the payment like if you 3 people are living together, the ISS will pay the amount 1,200 Hong Kong dollar, but not at the fixed date. Different dates, your monthly rent will be transferred like 8th of the month, and then some of them will be 10th or earlier or later, so we don't accept it. And the other thing is the food collection. They are asking us to collect food 6 times, and I don't see anything why 6 times do we have to collect the food. And, well, the main problem is we don't have the deposit. And I gathered the deposit from some of my friends. And they asked me, you have to write something. We need your signature that you are going to pay us back that deposit. That was 12,500 Hong Kong dollars. And I'm struggling. How can I pay them back? And without deposit, I cannot find any place to live.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Now we would like to invite Mrs. Pereira to speak. Mrs. Pereira.
I would like to thank Vision First give it for me chance to talking about my stories. And good afternoon, sir. Even my house rent was 6,700, but ISS paying for me 6,000 for every month. So I asked to ISS, how can I find the money? Then they tell me to go and find the money somewhere else. And even the Vision First Christian Action and somewhere else. How can I go and find the somewhere else? So even the food is not enough food. I have 3 children. My elder son is 23 years, and second son 16, third son 15 years. Even my husband and me, we are 5 of them in the family. So not enough food. Even every day, same things. I cannot choose even the food. So I asked, I want to choose something else, but they say no. Whatever we are providing, you have to take, no choice. So even my children going to school, they have to cut hair every month. So where is the money? Even the bus fare, transportation, they are not paying even properly. If I go see my lawyer, they're giving half rate of the bus fare. So no anything do properly. So ISS never do anything properly. I can say that. Thank you very much.
Yes, we would like to invite Mr. Bison to speak. Mr.
Good.
Bison.
I have some photos I'm going to share with you. So destitute claimants forced into slums. So basically our statement is that the High Court Usmanbad judgment is binding on the government to offer support which is considered sufficient to prevent a person from becoming destitute. ISS pays $1,400 for 2 claimants living under this tree. An abandoned pig farm is subdivided into tiny rooms, 7 different addresses. Destitute claimants cannot move out without deposit money. Claimants recover usable items from rubbish dumps. This is the bathroom in the converted pig farm, without hot water in the winter. Electrical works and meters are illegal. ISS never pays electricity in the area of being shared to claimants. Claimants are refunded gas every 5 to 6 months. In Kowloon, people get it every 2 to 3 months. This room has a toilet.
Please.
ISS inspected this room for 5 years. Toilets are fitted unhygienically in cooking areas. Rats are known to climb out of them. The squat toilet flushes into an infested open drain. Another compound makes use of an abandoned home where 12 claimants live with 6 different addresses. This kitchen is made from a rusty office desk. The shower is a wooden shack, waterproof with bags. By inspecting this compound over 5 years, ISS obviously approved it. 8 claimants have been living here for 5 years without toilets. ISS claims local live in similar conditions. You can compare the shack in front with the villa behind. A makeshift kitchen with plastic sheets for ceiling. The shower is fitted in an alleyway between 2 buildings. Despite paying $120 rent a month, these claimants walk day and night 300 meters to a public toilet. That's 1,200, a month. These claimants walk to the public toilets every. This compound is interesting. These 3 claimants have been ISS clients for 5 years, yet their homes have never been inspected. ISS claims case-by-case assessment for its needs, for clients' needs, yet They haven't visited this compound. This shack is obviously very dangerous and unlivable. Just going fast because we're running out of time. So a shower and toilet fitted in a passageway. This is an apartment. This is a block shown in one of the addresses of an ISS contract. And the tenants don't know about ISS here. So International Social Service stated, can I continue, please? Yeah. International Social Service stated that all the shortfalls in assistance to claimants are not ISS' fault. Ms. Panaris said that ISS hands are tied. ISS' position is that the Security Bureau is to blame for withholding necessary funding to claimants. Social Welfare Department is accountable for working alongside ISS in an oversight capacity. SWD and ISS kept the amount of assistance unchanged. With inflation, this amounts to failing to meet claimants' most basic needs. SWD and ISS conduct is egregious and an affront. Security Bureau repeatedly stated in High Court that claimants' needs are fully met and there is no need to review this policy. Security Bureau is in breach of Usman Butt case and its fiduciary duties towards claimants. Security Bureau has full knowledge of what is happening, skyrocketing inflation, and ISS maintaining fixed and unchanged rental payments since 2010. EDB, Hospital Authority, Immigration combine to ensure claimants are attacked by the government on all fronts. I just draw my conclusion. Government has allowed departments to continue welfare assistance under the false assumptions that claimants' basic material financial needs are met. This amounts to actual knowledge and willful blindness. Our conclusion is that Hong Kong government has substantially failed to fulfill its international and constitutional obligations towards claimants. The PowerPoint is on our website.
Thank you.
Now we would like to invite Mr. Hoyder to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Bishon first, and thank you, Legislative Council. So I would like to say something about our problem, the ISIS. ISIS, basically, they are paying to room rent $1,200, but it's not sufficient. In Hong Kong, cannot find a room rent like that $1,200. Without deposit, we find the room is very difficult. Because we are suffering for them, every month need to go for contact, and also for 3 times food collection, 1 time for go to the immigration signature. So always we are busy, but sometimes we don't have enough money for transportation. So if like this suffering, how long we will do that? So need to be for us make the one good solution. The ISIS contact every month 1 time or long time contacts. Every month we go to the ISIS is very difficult and sitting. Then go for 3 times food collection. And food is very lower classes food. This one kind of rice. This is the basmati rice. Actually, this is not basmati rice, and that kind of rice we are eating. Actually, not good for our health. So many people starvation for this food and ISS signature, and also some problem is the medical treatment. Medical treatment is if emergency they will do our treatment, but if need normally any kinds of operation. As an example, I have the heart disease. I am the heart disease person. Last February I go to the Queen Elizabeth cardiac department. They give me for the operation date. But the medical social welfare does not pay the bill. Then doctors say cannot do the operation. If you have the own money, $200,000, then we can do the operation. Otherwise, cannot possible to do the operation. So we are really for the feel the suffer in Hong Kong. Some problems facing is we cannot capacity to manage that. So sometimes we need the help from friends, but it is not also enough. So I have a request to the Legislative Council for do to any permanent things for us. Thank you for giving me the good chance and talking.
Oh, thank you.
Now we'd like to invite Mr. Bashiru to speak.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Yeah, I'm going to talk about some of the problems that facing us, but it is not seen, it's invisible. And then sometimes our appearance should not be the judgment of who we are. Yes, the system has made some of us to be liars before our landlords, because this is the only way we can secure our rooms. When he asks you, when are you paying your rent? You only say, my boss will give me money, whereas you are not working. So it has created some kind of tension whenever the moon is coming to an end. How to get this money to pay is a problem. And then I have been a liar before my landlord for about 3 years now. I always try to change my statement. So I ended up hanging back, wandering around everywhere, for him to see that I'm working, whereas I'm not. So these are kind of the situation that we are facing. And I'm one of the oldest people as far as this ISS is concerned. We were the first people to start this ISS since 2006. And I have been in this situation until now, and there is no any change. Even though the boss of ISS has explained his side of the story, we can also just stand here and listen, but we are also talking about our side, the way we are feeling. Because this is about our life, and we are people who are capable, who will be able to exhibit what we have in case we have opportunity. I've been here for 8 good years doing nothing. I'm beginning to understand that I'm becoming useless, despite the skills that I can exhibit, despite what I can produce as something that I think will be helpful to somebody. We have been here for so many years now. If we have been prevented from working, what about keeping us busy, doing something that we can keep it so that we can use it for the rest of our lives? Our time is getting over. 8 years doing nothing. And we cannot be here just because we came here for happiness. No. I was a teacher. I used to receive salary. If it is about money, consider the number of years I've spent here. I have not gained anything. This should be an advice for me to go back if there is no problem. So, I just want to conclude that whilst we are making arrangements to see how our condition will be changed, certain things must be considered regarding people who will be willing to have some short courses to live on. We cannot continue like this forever. Even if we should find ourselves in another location, you have hope. Now, I want to tell you, if now you ask asylum seekers to vote, food and hope, many people will choose hope. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Ms.
Now I'd like to invite Mrs. Dorothy to speak.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We are really privileged to sit here before you and put forward our problem. We are really honored to be here. Thank you very much. I have 4 points to talk about. The major point is the housing issue. The housing issue is a total nightmare in our community. Truly, there is no room that rents out for 1,200 as we speak, except for a few places that are not supposed to be lived in by people, i.e. the pigsties. The owners converted into shelters and charge them as they wish. If you are lucky to get a room and can't be paid up by ISS, the best solution is to cramp yourselves into small rooms that are suitable for 1 person or 2. And as if that is not enough, landlords raise their rents whenever they feel like. Many of these dingy rooms have their rents raised every 6 months, with a complimentary you can pack out if you can't pay. As you know, we don't have any income to pay up the balance. We depend entirely on the government and the handouts from Good Samaritans. Point number 2, food. All we can say is that food is not enough. I'll give an example. If you give me 5 kilograms of rice, a piece of chicken, a few grams of meat, 5 red bananas, and maybe 3 tomatoes, I have to ration this food for 10 good days. Believe me, it's not enough. Worst of all, this same food is supposed to be divided into a portion of 5-day ratio by beginning of August. I'm not so sure whether we shall be receiving 1 banana, 1 orange, quarter a chicken. We don't know why such a small portion again is to be divided into 2. Well, ISS knows why it is doing that. Still, it can't patch up the deficit. We as refugees, people who receive these services, we still oppose the collection of food for 6 times a month. Point number 3, medical. We truly appreciate the medical waivers provided by ISS. But when it comes to seeing specialists, we are locked out. They say we don't qualify. If you need to see a specialist, you should pay. I myself, I walked into a hospital for a gynecological problem. I had a waiver. They closed me out. They said I have to pay $3,000 if I need to see a doctor. I really felt it was not fair on my side. Lastly, education for our children. In our community, we have all children of all ages. These children need to go to school, but most of the time the process to enroll them is made very hard for us to have a breakthrough. It is so complicated in every angle you turn to. Worst of all.
Okay.
May I conclude, please? Just conclusion. Worst of all we are requesting is enough subsistence as we wait. Because without enough subsistence, there's nothing much we can say about it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Next. 我想同各位朋友
I'd like to tell the deputations that we have a very tight timetable today. We will welcome you coming to speak to us, but please stick to 3 minutes and complete your speech within 3 minutes, please.
Ms. Allen to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Julie Allen, and I'm the manager of Christian Action's Chungking Mansion Service Center. Christian Action has been working with refugees here in Hong Kong for almost 30 years, first serving this population when there were waves of Vietnamese refugees fleeing to Hong Kong in the 1980s, and now at our center in Chungking Mansions, where we've operated since 2004, providing humanitarian assistance. We're also a member of the Refugee Concern Network. We're honored to be here today to share our experience and recommendation on how to improve the situation of refugees, torture claimants, and asylum seekers, who I'll now call protection claimants in Hong Kong. Our message is clear. In this wealthy city, protection claimants are struggling for survival. They need more help from the government. Protection claimants who are forced to flee their countries and unable to return often arrive here with little more than the clothes on their back. They must navigate in an unfamiliar city under stressful conditions where they have negligible or even invisible status. The government can do more. Human rights must be respected while they seek protection and await resettlement. Protection claimants must receive sufficient assistance for a dignified stay in Hong Kong. A dignified stay means that they have enough to eat and the personal freedom to choose their own food, that they live in a place that is affordable, habitable, and safe, that they can access education and training opportunities while awaiting resettlement. These are simple things that many of us in this room take for granted, but they cannot. The government's position regarding welfare services to this population is to prevent a person from becoming destitute without creating a magnet effect, which translates to us that the services available are simply insufficient. As we witness at Christian Action almost every day, many protection claimants live their lives in Hong Kong perched on the razor's edge between destitute and not destitute. Their physical needs for food, clothing, and shelter are only just being met and oftentimes tipping over to the edge. Let me quickly address 2 key welfare issues. The government is more than aware that food assistance is in kind at a value of $1,000 per month. Many clients here today and community members here today report that the amount of food is insufficient. Indeed, 70% of respondents in a recent survey conducted by the Refugee Concern Network indicated that they simply do not receive enough food. We propose that the government consider using vouchers or cash disbursements for this program. Last week, we asked a group of recognized refugees to collect one of their monthly food bags, valued at $333, create an itemized list of the foods that they collected, and then go out into the markets to go shopping. Basically, they were able to purchase those exact same items for $229, saving $104 in the process. A voucher or cash transfer system would save the government money in the long run, plus provide protection claimants with personal choice of food, which is simple yet critical to living with dignity.
Thank you. Please.
Yes, we would like to invite Ms. Patricia Yuen-han to speak. Ms. Ho.
Thank you. I'm one of the lawyers from Daly & Associates, and we are a firm that has been representing this particular group of persons for many years, many on a pro bono basis. And when it comes to the issue of welfare matters, we have been doing many pro bono work, mainly because of the need. Now, I would just like to highlight, I've already submitted a paper, and I would like to highlight one thing that I find rather surprising. In my paper, I've quoted the government's statement in 2006, in July, 7 years ago, and they talked about their policy when it comes to welfare. And they say this, that they aim to provide support which is considered sufficient to prevent destitution, while at the same time not creating a magnet effect for people to come to Hong Kong. I just read the government's paper submitted this month, and in paragraph 4, they basically stated the exact same sentence. I find that rather alarming to see the exact type of statements made by policymakers who have been dealing with the same problem all these years and have not changed the position in any way. Now, if I look to the key central element or the central point of this statement, they are using welfare as a deterrent effect to not, basically to dispel people from coming to Hong Kong. This is not acceptable. We really need to basically scrutinize what the government is doing with their money. We have heard in the last month some figures from the government saying how much money they're spending on welfare, etc. I would invite, I think, the legislators to ask them for a breakdown. How much of that money is actually spent on legal advice where they are getting to ensure that they are providing the minimum possible welfare to people or minimum possible legal assistance and all the other things to people? It may be, I suspect, that the legal money that they're spending or money on legal advice will surpass the money that they're actually providing in substance to clients. I'd ask for serious scrutiny there. I'd like to also just point out that government has stated all sorts of things of wonderful services that provide to asylum seekers, but at the end of the day, none of it match what we have seen today and statements from asylum seekers and persons of concerns. So I'd like to ask for serious scrutiny of these statements and really not just to allow them to say whatever they wish. The government has been taking the position where they will continue to apply these basic, unlawful, wanting policies until some lawyers, like our own firm, take a case to sue them and win. Now, we have won for many years, but it takes years to bring these cases. It takes years to actually have the next win. And I would like to urge every legislator here to urge the government to actually run policies that are sensible and not wait for them to lose in another legal battle. Thank you.
Next.
Now we would like to invite Pastor Tony Reid to speak. Pastor Reid.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm a pastor at the Vine Church in Wan Chai, and through the church we have been providing food, financial aid, assistance and fellowship to over 250 refugees, torture claimants and asylum seekers on a regular basis through our community arm, the Vine Community Services. Our written contribution has been submitted together with Hong Kong Refugee Advice Centre, Christian Action, Refugee Concern Network and Amnesty International. Many have spoken today about human rights, and the protection claimants themselves have drawn attention to the deficits that they feel in the services offered to them. We've also heard about the legal duty incumbent upon the administration to maintain adequate welfare. The protection claimants really have shown that this protection does not in practice exist. But today, as a minister of the gospel, I want to highlight the moral obligation upon the administration as a protection provider towards this vulnerable community. The Bible makes it quite clear that we have a moral duty to take care of those who are in a worse situation than ourselves. Proverbs chapter 3 says, "Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it." The Pharisees were also chastised by Jesus for their policy, which pursued legal correctness, but which at the same time was morally bankrupt. It's quite clear that the administration's welfare policy set out in paragraph 4 of its policy paper is designed by the Security Bureau to meet the needs of its own security policy and not the needs of the protection claimants. And it has been imposed on the Social Welfare Department to implement as best they are able. The policy, in short, is designed to allow any inconvenience, inhumanity, degradation, indignity and suffering to protection claimants short of actual destitution. It is designed to send a message to any potential asylum seekers: don't come here, you are on your own. The policy implies that we, as the Hong Kong administration and civil society, are willing to sacrifice mental health, livelihood, and the well-being of 5,000 or so protection claimants so that 7 million of us residents can cling onto our wealth and avoid our moral duty to help those that we have an obligation to protect and provide for. We cannot justify the suffering of a few of the weakest in order to protect the benefits of the majority. We reject this policy as being morally outrageous. Any improvements to the welfare policy claimants must start by changing this morally bankrupt policy, because it cannot form the basis of any just welfare provision. And I urge the administration not to tinker with the present policy. We need to develop a policy that respects the rights of the recipients and reflects the reputation of Hong Kong in the developed world for justice and fairness. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
卞安妮小姐。
Thank you. Welfare assistance and right to work both concern whether a person is able to sustain his own living. And I'd like to take this opportunity today to focus a bit on the right to work. And most of the clients that we know, they all would like to work. Most of them have been working in their countries and are able-bodied persons who would like to contribute to society and be self-reliant. But right now the policy from the government is that they're not allowed to work, and this really does lead to many problems. We've seen families who have been torn apart, or there are lots of family problems especially we've seen with males that who used to work in their home countries, that when they're not able to work or support their own family, that they do break down or have mental health problems. So we do have some clients who have to be on medication or receive counseling. So definitely allowing people to work would be beneficial for their mental health and also for their families. And I think the government should take a look at other countries. Because, for instance, in Australia, if you're an asylum seeker, after 6 months you are allowed to work, even though you're not recognized as a refugee. And the same with UK, it's after 12 months. In US, 150 days. And New Zealand takes a special consideration for families. So if it's a family, they are likely to get a work permit. The second thing that I'd like to focus on is vocational training. We have had, over the years, lots of clients who were teenagers or in their early 20s, both refugee and asylum seekers who were quite young, but they couldn't attend secondary school or primary school in Hong Kong because they were more than 18. And their background was that maybe they came from Somalia and they had 5 years of education because of the war. or even less. And we helped them apply for vocational training at the Vocational Training Council, but they were all rejected. And the Vocational Training Council's policy is that vocational training is for preparation for local employment. So since they don't have a right to work in Hong Kong, they could not attend these kind of courses. So they actually were left with nothing. They were maybe 18, 19 years old, but they don't have a right to work, and they couldn't attend any kind of training or education. So they were just left there stranded.
No, thank you.
So our recommendation is that the government should, of course, allow asylum seekers and refugees to work after some time, and then also focus on the youth, especially with the youth, on vocational training. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
I would like to invite Mr. Peter to speak. Mr. Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Peter, technician, mechanic. I have a bachelor degree in mechanic. So I have my own shop back home. But when I have problems with the government, my shop was destroyed, and I came to Hong Kong. I stayed 8 years in Hong Kong without working, all because of the government does not want to give us a chance to prove that we are useless and help ourselves. Many among the 7,000 of asylum seekers and refugees have a degree, have a qualification to be useful to the society. But the government of Hong Kong does not give us that chance. Giving a chance to refugee and asylum seekers will not harm Hong Kong government, but contrary, it will help and contribute something good for the society. I want to finish this to say, there's a saying that give a fish to a man and he will eat for 1 day and come back to you and beg for more. That's what ISIS is doing. Give us fish. But it's not enough. We have to come and beg them for more. Teach a man how to fish, and it will be help to himself, feed the community, and contribute to the society. So we need the government to help us, to give us a chance to prove ourselves, for them to know that we are not useless. A lot of people in this asylum seeker and torture claim, we have ability, we have knowledge, we have worked before, but right now it's like we are useless. We are nothing. But if the Hong Kong government can give us a chance to prove ourselves, they will know that we are useless for society. Some of them, of us need training as well. For example, I was a technician, 8 years staying in Hong Kong, I'm not doing anything. But if I have to go to another country, I need to work. So I need another training. So I will ask the Hong Kong government to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to invite Mr. Philip Karari to speak. Mr. Karari.
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity. My name is Karani, Philip Karani, the head of the UNHCR office in Hong Kong. UNHCR, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, is given a mandate by the international community, by the United Nations, to coordinate international protection, action for the worldwide protection and resolution of refugee problems. So that explains our presence here. UNHCR's presence in Hong Kong dates back to the 1950s. UNHCR first came to Hong Kong soon after the organization was established in 1951. And the reason UNHCR came to Hong Kong was to advocate for ways in which refugees coming to Hong Kong, mainly from mainland China at that time, could be given assistance. This is important because our role and presence in Hong Kong dates back to a time when Hong Kong itself, most of the people in Hong Kong today, were in need of international assistance. We have, over the last 30 or so years, had a permanent presence in Hong Kong, and our efforts have revolved around advocating and providing assistance for asylum seekers and refugees in Hong Kong. In terms of today's deliberations, we've made a written submission. This submission is based on interviews and discussions that we held with refugees in various forums. Many of the issues we identified have in fact been presented here this afternoon. We've listened to the protection claimants who have come out in very compelling ways to explain the situation as they face it in Hong Kong. And to recap, many of these issues revolve around accommodation. We've heard that accommodation allowance provided through the assistance program is insufficient and does not allow refugees to find safe and adequate housing. Linked to this, of course, is also the issue of a payment of utility expenses, and of course the issue of rent or deposits. These are issues that have been identified here, and we would like to urge the government to review the levels of assistance given for accommodation. We've also had presentations about food assistance. Various issues have been brought up regarding food assistance, and we would like to urge the government to look at that again carefully to see whether in fact there could be a re-examination and possibly consider a system of a voucher system as opposed to the current system where either because of
Thank you.
This is not quite working. So very briefly, our submission covers many of these points, and I'm glad that many have in fact been highlighted by the protection claimants themselves. Thank you very much.
Please.
Now we would like to invite Professor Simon Young to speak. Professor Young.
Right. Thank you very much for the invitation. The Center for Comparative and Public Law at the Faculty of Law, Hong Kong U, makes essentially one main submission, and that is that we recommend the government to carry out a comprehensive and comparative study of the standards of social and economic protections for asylum seekers in other countries. And I think there's been reference to this in one of the earlier presentations, but we essentially say that there's three good reasons why this study should be carried out. The first is we need to know if what is happening now in Hong Kong falls below international standards. And I think clearly from what we've heard already, there's very good reasons to think that it does. And I think a study like this would tell us just to what extent it does fall below such standards. The second reason, of course, is that it could excite new ideas and new ways of possible delivery. Why must in Hong Kong we have only one service provider, one contract with ISS? Why not other alternative ways of delivery? We've heard about some of the standards in the common law countries, which are very decent, but very recently, not too far from here, in Malaysia. And Malaysia is very interesting because in Malaysia, they are like Hong Kong. They're not a party to the Refugee Convention. Yet, very recently, they've said that they've decided to allow refugees and asylum seekers to work. Not just only to work, but also to train them as well. Because they've seen that as a matter of good policy, this is the way to go. And I would commend those developments to this government. Furthermore, and the third reason is, of course, that such a study would help to promote more proactive policy making. right? We shouldn't have to wait for the courts to tell us what to do. And there will probably be more cases going to the courts if we just sit back and do nothing. If we could keep repeating what was written 8 years ago, it'll just come back and haunt the government when it gets to the courts. And by that time, it could well be too late. People, asylum seekers, could be returned to face torture, because they felt that they're living in destitute situations in Hong Kong, and in fact, to have that effect would be in violation of the basic principle of non-refoulement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Thank you.
So Ms. Das to speak. Ms. Das.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I've been a researcher and a clinical counselor in this community for the past 3 years. And I believe this is an opportunity today to begin to work together in open dialogue around the holistic needs of refugees, asylum seekers, and torture claimants. As this community enters our shores, many of them are traumatized. It is critical we promote protective factors at the macro, meso, and micro levels of society, such as social support, resources, access to fundamental services. Today, I focus on health and mental health as a crucial aspect. I'd like to start by acknowledging the immense strengths of this community. In this broken system in Hong Kong, their resilience is tested daily. But even the most resilient people can be broken. And unfortunately, in my experience, working with this community, I've seen high rates of depression, post-traumatic stress, anxiety, as well as violence, family violence, substance use, and unfortunately, suicidal ideation. As we open this valuable dialogue on how to improve the current system, I urge the Hong Kong government to focus on general health and psychosocial support as a key element. Training of healthcare providers, local, clinical social workers, mental health counselors, psychologists, and psychiatrists is imperative. This is because in this community, we're dealing with special needs. For example, many of these people have gone through torture, complex trauma, complicated grief, loss of family, home, and just imagine not even knowing whether your family is still alive. As this community is screened through the asylum and torture systems, it is of utmost concern they receive access to mental and behavioral services to prevent re-traumatization. I echo the voices here advocating for researching best global practices. I believe at this juncture there is an opportunity to promote a holistic intervention model for this community. I also emphasize the need for collaboration within the communities, interdisciplinary advocacy among service providers, and tailored, culturally appropriate, and inclusive services for individuals and communities. For individuals, the level of needed support will vary. Assessing and treating trauma is crucial, as is promoting strengths and resilience. Drawing upon a holistic approach to enable social support for refugees, asylum seekers, and torture claimants could prove to be an effective strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. 多謝所有人今日俾意見。
I'd like to thank the deputations for coming. Now, I have a question for members. 7 members have indicated that they want to speak, but I have to hand over this room at 4:30. I want to draw a line there, but I still have to deal with the motion to be moved by Mr. Fernando CHEUNG. So I'd like to listen to your advice. First, I draw a line at 4:30, and then each will be given 2 minutes, and then I still have to give 3 minutes to the administration to respond. I don't know, we have to complete everything. I'm not a member of your panel, but can you have another meeting, because so many people have come to give their views, and we can't just deal with it hastily. Now, after today, after this meeting, we have the joint meeting with Home Affairs and Social Welfare Service, and we may need to find another date. Mr. Dennis Kwok. Well, these groups have been waiting for a very long time for these 3 minutes. What's the point of just speaking for 2 minutes? Now, that's the situation we are in, and that indeed is really a difficult situation. In fact, we have tried every effort in order to squeeze into our timetable to get this time slot. I agree that we can have another meeting. Now, Fernando CHEUNG's motion, together with other members' questions, will be handled at another meeting. We need to address the views made by the deputations, the UNHCR, the Hong Kong U. I don't know whether members are agreeable. Now, I will ask the administration to respond, and then we will call another meeting. Fernando CHEUNG, I agree with another meeting. And it is necessary. We need to spend some time, we need to spend more time on that and discuss in greater detail. But I don't want the groups to go away empty-handed. The motion before members today is just a very basic position or a basic view. If you agree with to deal with my motion, then at least when the groups go back, they can take this motion with them. They can see the position of this panel, and the administration can take this as a basis for the next meeting. Yes, I agree with you. Mr. Tam. Well, we can't deal with Mr. CHEUNG's motion within a short period of time. We really don't have time to discuss the motion. We cannot just go hastily say we support the motion or we are against the motion. And after today, many members may be on leave, and there are also members who are not, who are present today, are not members of the welfare panel. I just want to tell members that we have spent a lot of time on finding this session. Now, to be fair, I really hope that the administration will respond in detail. Well, everybody is asking the Hong Kong government, what is it going to do? So I will let the administration to answer the question, and if members want to quarrel with the administration, so be it. Long hair? Well, I think let them speak instead of let members speak. Thank you. Long hair. Okay. We will certainly find another date to discuss all these problems together with Mr. CHEUNG's motion. We'll try the best. Okay. I give the floor to the Bureau and also the Social Welfare Department. You have to answer the questions. 5 minutes each, okay? And then I'll give the floor to the groups. Okay, the Bureau. Chairman, I'll be concise. I thank the groups for coming and share with us their experience. After the recent series of discussions in this council and also within the community, we found that the present scheme in respect of support level, in respect of operation, has some room for improvement. We will carefully consider the views given today. We will consider the views one by one and see what we can do in the short term as well as in the longer term. In fact, the Social Welfare Department has already started some work. Our policy objective has been stated. Some deputations have asked us to reconsider our policy. In fact, our principle is very clear. Anyone coming to Hong Kong, if one makes a claim, we will try to deal with the claim as quickly as possible. If the claim is established, the person will be given the non-refoulement protection. But if the person status as a refugee cannot be established, then we will repatriate the person. The question is, when these people are staying in Hong Kong, they have the basic needs for accommodation, for food, for clothing, for moving around. And to prevent them from being in destitution in Hong Kong, we have the present arrangements in 2006. As for those whose claims have been established, if they apply to the Immigration Department, the Director of Immigration can exercise his discretion to approve the person to work in Hong Kong, but it doesn't include those who are waiting for screening. Who can work in Hong Kong is a very sensitive topic. We need to consider the overall situation of Hong Kong and not just from the perspective of the claimant. As for cases as mentioned in Ping Chair, I asked the Social Welfare Department to explain. Yes, Mrs. Mack. Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for the comments. The arrangement started in 2006, and we've seen that there is room for improvement. Having heard your views, we will make reference to your views in considering service. As for the situation in Ping Chair, before they applied to ISS for help, they had been living in Ping Chair. Some felt that the living conditions were not desirable. We've got the cooperation of the ISS. If there is any need to find other places, the ISS is willing to provide assistance. As for the rent assistance, in 2006, we started to provide the assistance, and we have made some adjustment. We are assessing the level of assistance according to the current trend in the market, and there is room for improvement. I hope that in the coming 1 or 2 months, a decision will be made on how much to adjust. As for the $1,200, this is basically a reference number. As for individual cases, when there is a special situation, then the refugees can, or the claimants can raise the issue with the ISS, and then the ISS can make some adjustment accordingly. It is also reported in the newspapers that the address in certain tenancy agreements didn't tally with the actual facts. We've asked the ISS to conduct a detailed investigation and make a report to us. If there is any breach of contract, or breach of the law, we do not rule out the possibility of taking legal action, such as taking action against fraud. In terms of providing assistance, as said by Ms. Au, we need to provide a suitable balance. On one hand, we need to prevent the claimant from being put in destitution, and on the other hand, we also need to not create a magnet effect. Having heard your views, when we come into agreement with the service providers, I think these views are referenced. Thank you.
呢個團體嚟嘅，包括國際社。我諗或者你都俾一啲意見啊。即係剛才兩位官員咁答就話，福利處阿麥太就話，大約2個月到會檢討啲相關嘅事。但有啲嘢佢提咗出國際服務社，我睇下有冇其他團體想問一問啦，透過你哋，好嘛？冇係嘛 ？OK， 我哋同事有冇嘢想要係劉興義唔該。
係主席啊，我相信團體提出有啲係好迫切嘅問題嚟㗎。咁就係包括住屋嘅地方啦，你話 CNN 都話到我哋係地獄嘅咁樣，同埋食物唔足夠，同埋啲細路仔冇得去讀書。即係其實呢，我希望我哋第日可以有個團呢去睇一睇嗰啲地方啊，主席。但係幾位官員可唔可以講呢？係呢頭先講嗰幾樣嘢呢，喺呢1-2個禮拜內呢，係可以馬上處理到，即係揾翻一啲可以符合人去住嘅地方俾佢住。同埋咧，佢話唔夠食物啊，嗰啲係咪俾到佢？同埋電視又話有啲細路仔6歲5歲就。
Food
and some children, 4 or 5, couldn't attend school, and you said that they do not meet the conditions. Now, we hope that the officials could give us a sound reply in September. Now, they don't have enough food. They live in former pigsties. Our reputation is ruined. Now, can you give an answer? Now, on living accommodation, Mrs. Mack already mentioned all along at the Pink Chair area, those claimants living there, if they wish to move away from that area, they can take the initiative and ask the ISS. The ISS meets them every month, and they can ask for assistance to relocate to a location that they think is more suitable, and the ISS will follow up. The opportunity exists. Now, this mechanism is available to every person who is assisted. Now, on education, this is under the Education Bureau. Now, for the claimants who stay in Hong Kong, some of them bring children with them. Others give birth to children while they are waiting. But in any case, if they are of school age, if their parents ask to go to school through the Education Bureau will conduct an inquiry on whether the claimant or his children will have his case processed within a short period and be repatriated. But if it's found that the children will stay in Hong Kong for a long time, then if it's determined that the children will not be repatriated within a short time, then the Education Bureau will try to find places for the children. So that's the basic arrangement. Now, as for the cases reported in the media, we will study them. Okay. Now, I have 3 members who have raised their hands. We have 10 odd minutes, 2 minutes each, please. There's one deputation. Okay. Oh, on food, please. Let me talk about food. The speaker is not coming through the mic. Please speak closer to the mic. In our review, we provide the claimant to tick the food items he wants on a form. The number of items have been increased based on people's needs. The quantity is based on the normal requirement of adults and children. If there are cases of inadequacy, we would be glad to find out why. Because the quantity and the varieties are designed to meet the needs of the claimants and taking into account their religion, and there is also baby formula included. Now, as for the number of times food are collected, now this can be adjusted. Now, for some families, they take a large quantity on each occasion, so they might prefer a higher frequency. Now, when we enter into agreement with the ISS or we review the agreement, we can make the adjustment. Others may not prefer a high frequency of collection. So we do not have a fixed frequency, a certain number of times per month. Very often it's tailored to the situation. Now, some would say that I collect too much food, it's inconvenient when I take public transport, especially when I'm with children. Now, in that case, the ISS will take into account the case situation and sometimes provide the taxi fare. And if two families live close together, and they might share the taxi fare if they go on the same day. So when we spend public money, we do have to be careful on how it's used. Thank you. Next, Ms. Ann Ho.
Back to some of the statements made. I think one of the biggest disappointments I'm having is that many of the responses given are basically maintaining that your current system is adequate. The fact is that it's not. You say that you're providing adequate food. The fact is the whole population doesn't think that there's enough. It's not 有個別情況唔夠. The whole population thinks that it's not. The other thing is about rental. You say that 1,200 is only basic and that some people will be topped up. The fact is, you only get a top up if you get a valid medical certificate saying that you've got a broken arm, broken leg or something. Very, very few people have more than 1,200. I just also want to say that there's a suggestion that ISS will help people move out of pink chair if necessary or if the person wants. Again, we know how the system works. ISS will allow the person to go out there in society and find a place. And if they're able to find a place within 1,200, then they will allow and help them to move. But if they're not, the fact is they're going to stay there. So if there's no practical options for people, no practical help, ISS is not going to take these people by the hand and go offer them other places. That's simply not the case happening here. And the final, I just have one little concern, is they say that, if some people have given false addresses, then they will consider taking legal action against them. That raises an alarm bell to me because these persons are vulnerable. And if any asylum seekers are blamed for providing false addresses or certain things and they are put into jail for that reason, many times they don't even know what's happening. That's a situation that we must prevent. We need to provide help and not try to punish them for further deterrent effects. Thank you.
Okay. 政府
The administration. Now, it's been mentioned that people can go to seek help from the ISS. Now, that's in two respects. First, if they find alternative accommodation, they can seek assistance from ISS. But mainly, for such cases, they may not be able to find such accommodation by their own means. Then they can seek assistance from ISS and ask the ISS to find for them a suitable alternative accommodation. They are not supposed to go out and find it themselves. And Mrs. Mack mentioned that if in the course of our investigation we find the need to make legal follow-up, if the landlord provides false address to ISS or to the SWD concerning rent allowance, then if we come across such information, we will forward them to the law enforcing agencies for follow-up. We still have 4 minutes. 1 minute each, please. 3 have raised their hands: Albert Ho, Helena Wong, and Fernando CHEUNG. Albert Ho, 1 minute. Just 1 minute. No response. Now, we all know $1,200, how much rental accommodation you can get with that. And the director said they can take taxis. Now, they are supposed to take the cheapest transport. I don't understand. Maybe they don't know what's happening. And also, because I don't have time, now I hope the government will provide with a document how many children are not able to go to school. Secondly, why they are not allowed to work. Now you said this is very sensitive, allowing them to work. Why? Why can't they work? They apply for refugee status. Now, what's against them? Why is it that they can do that in other countries? Now, work is so important for these people who are in a dire situation in Hong Kong. Work will allow them to be less alienated. Now, they are not even allowed to do volunteer work. It's most unfair. Fernando CHEUNG. Firstly, I thank all the deputations to come. They are very brave. Many of them are worried about their own safety. When they come here and speak openly, it's not easy at all. We know that many live in very poor circumstances. The government said they don't let them fall into destitution. This is a lie. Now, Vision First PowerPoint makes it clear. Unfortunately, our lighting is not that good. Now, I visited Pingche and Takuling area refugees. I agree with Emily Lau. This panel can make an arrangement for a visit, preferably with the senior officials, so that they can see what is destitution. Next, Dr. Helena Wong. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, at the next annual meeting, I hope the government will answer several questions. Firstly, the average assessment period. How long is that? Why can't it be shortened? Secondly, members have asked, why is it that there's only one agency, that is the ISS, that takes care of the refugees? Now, it seems that we put $200 million per year. It's not a small sum, and the SWD is supposed to monitor how the money is spent. So please provide us with a document. How much of the $200 million is used for administration? How much directly on the refugees? Thirdly, about accommodation. Now, we have some vacant schools. Have you considered taking these vacant schools to accommodate these refugees? We know some schools are vacant. Mrs. May? Now, I remember 8 years ago, I worked in a social welfare agency. One of our duties was to apply on behalf of asylum seekers for services. Now, we wanted to get some of these claimants to come out for an interview. It was very difficult. So some of these protection claimants are willing to come and tell us about their experience. That is very important. I know how meaningful that is because I did the work. Now, at that time, it was 8 years ago. At that time, there were already inadequate resources. We thought the government would provide fresh funds, but the problem still could not be resolved. We still have the same old problems. So the administration should do something quickly. The chairperson said that we will have another meeting. In that case, there should be a joint meeting with the Security Bureau, because an important issue is how the eligibility would be dealt with. Today is a joint meeting, but the Security Bureau said they will not participate. Now, anyway, I will summarize. Now, the Secretariat has noted all the views of the members and the deputations. Mrs. Max says you give me 2 or 3 months. Ms. Emily Lau asked, can it be done in 1 or 2 months? Can you give it to us in early September, because some will be leaving soon? If that's okay, then I and the Vice Chairman will discuss further with the Security Bureau. We hope that can be done in early September. If not, we hope that the Secretariat will follow up. It can be later, but we are going to have a further meeting. You mean the meeting will be in September? I thought that within the current session we will have another meeting. Well, that is still considered the current session, but I don't know about July. Can you deal with my motion today? No, I already told the colleagues that we need discussion first. Now, this is a welfare services panel. I hope you can come again. Now, August or September are both of this session. I have of this, so I have no problem with them. Mr. Ma of the next panel meeting is already here. I have to yield the room to him. Now, we will ask you to fill out a form, and we will tell the administration people are concerned about education, accommodation, and food and work. I hope whether it's Mrs. Mack or the Security Bureau, Mr. Wu, give us a document as quickly as possible to LegCo. Now, we appear to be in summer recess, but actually we are still here. We thank the deputations for coming today. I'm sorry there is inadequate time for further discussion, but thank you in any case. Any decision will be informed to you as quickly as possible. Thank you. Mr. Ma, thank you.